Introduction. Written nearly 2 millennia ago between 161 and 180 AD, Meditations is perhaps the most famous and influential text of Stoic philosophy ever produced. It was never meant to be published. Instead, these were the private, personal journals of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and the most powerful man in the world at the time. While commanding massive armies on the brutal front lines of the Roman Empire, Marcus Aurelius wrote these notes at night to himself. They were his way of finding clarity, restraining his ego, and reminding himself of his duty to his people and to the universe. In these pages, he wrestles with the same anxieties we face today, dealing with difficult people, managing stress, facing mortality, and finding peace in a chaotic world. This audio edition has been carefully modernized from the classic 1902 George W. Crystal translation. The dense, 19th-century sentence structures have been streamlined and clarified into sharp, accessible English, while strictly preserving the calm, reflective, and stoic tone of the original text. Whether you are seeking guidance on leadership, emotional resilience, or just a clearer perspective on life, you are about to hear the unvarnished, private thoughts of a philosopher king. Book 1. 1. I learned from my grandfather, Verus, to have good manners and keep my anger in check. 2. From the reputation and memory of my father, I learned what it means to be modest and manly. 3. My mother taught me to be religious and generous. She showed me how to avoid not only doing evil, but even thinking about it. She also taught me to live simply, far removed from the typical habits of the rich. 4. I owe it to my great-grandfather that I avoided public schools. Instead, I had excellent teachers at home. He taught me that when it comes to education, you should never hesitate to spend generously. 5. My tutor taught me not to take sides in the chariot races, favoring neither the green nor the blue teams. He also told me not to cheer for specific gladiators, whether lightly or heavily armed. From him, I learned to endure hard work and want very little. He taught me to do things for myself without bothering others, to mind my own business, and to ignore gossip and slander. 6. Diognetus taught me not to waste my time on shallow things. He told me to ignore the tall tales of miracle workers and sorcerers who claim they can cast spells or drive out demons. He warned me against keeping quails for fighting or getting caught up in similar fads. He showed me how to tolerate people who speak their minds freely, and he inspired my deep love for philosophy. I also have him to thank for introducing me to the lectures of Bacchius, and later Tandicis and Marcianus. Thanks to him, I began writing philosophical dialogues in my youth. I happily adopted the philosopher's simple bed and animal skins, embracing all the traditional practices of the Greek thinkers. 7. Rusticus helped me realize that my own character needed fixing and healing. He kept me from falling into the trap of becoming a typical public intellectual. Because of him, I didn't waste my time writing abstract theories or delivering preachy public speeches. He also steered me away from trying to impress people by showing off my self-discipline or my busy schedule. He taught me to give up the study of rhetoric, poetry, and overly elegant language. He made sure I didn't walk around the house in my formal senatorial robes or put on any other kind of pretentious act. I learned to write letters simply, just like the one he wrote to my mother from Sinuessa. He taught me to be forgiving and ready to make peace with anyone who angered or offended me, as soon as they were willing to make amends. He taught me to read carefully, never settling for a shallow understanding, and not to be quickly won over by people who talk too much. I am especially grateful to him for introducing me to the teachings of Epictetus, lending me a copy from his own library. 8. Apollonius taught me true freedom and unbreakable determination. He taught me to rely on nothing but reason, even in the smallest matters. He showed me how to stay perfectly steady through excruciating pain, the loss of a child, or a long illness. He was a living example of how a person can be both incredibly resilient and completely adaptable. He was always patient when explaining things. You could see that he considered his skill in teaching philosophy to be the least of his talents. From him, I learned how to accept favors from friends without losing my self-respect and without seeming ungrateful. 9. Sextus was my role model for a kind and gentle temper. His household was the perfect example of a family led by true fatherly love and a firm commitment to living according to nature. From him, I learned how to be serious without being fake. I learned how to carefully observe the moods and needs of my friends. He taught me to be patient with the ignorant and with those who follow popular opinions without thinking for themselves. He knew how to adapt to anyone and any situation. Spending time with him was more enjoyable than any flattery, yet he commanded the deepest respect from everyone around him. He had an incredible talent for discovering, understanding, and organizing the essential rules of life. His example showed me how to completely suppress anger and any other intense emotion. Even with his perfect calmness, he had the most tender and loving heart. He was quick to praise others, but did so quietly. He possessed vast knowledge, but never showed it off. 10. Alexander the grammarian taught me not to criticize people. He showed me not to embarrass others when they used bad grammar, awkward phrasing, or mispronounced a word. Instead, he taught me to tactfully use the correct word in my reply. I learned to focus on the topic itself rather than the mistake, gently offering the right expression or finding some other polite way to guide them. 11. Fronto opened my eyes to the jealousy, deceit, and hypocrisy that surround kings. He helped me see that the people we call nobles often lack basic human affection. 12. Alexander the Platonist taught me not to constantly tell people, or write in letters, that I am too busy. He showed me not to use urgent business as an excuse to dodge the responsibilities we owe to our family, friends, and community. 13. Catullus taught me never to dismiss a friend's complaint, even if it seems unfair. Instead, I should try to restore our relationship to how it was before. He taught me to speak of my teachers with wholehearted praise, just as people remember Domitius and Athenodorus doing. He also taught me to love my children with true, deep affection. 14. My brother Severus taught me to love my family, truth, and justice. Through him, I learned about Thrasea, Helvidius, Cato, Dion, and Brutus. He gave me my first vision of a republic built on fair laws and equal rights, and a monarchy that prioritizes the freedom of its citizens. From him, I learned to stay devoted to philosophy. He taught me to be generous, giving with all my heart, and to stay optimistic. He showed me how to trust in the love of my friends. He was always honest about what he disliked in others. His behavior was so open and straightforward that his friends never had to guess what he wanted or felt. 15. The advice of Maximus taught me self-control and clear judgment. He showed me how to stay brave during sickness and other hardships. He taught me to be gentle but serious, and to do my duty without complaining. Everyone believed that he meant exactly what he said, and that everything he did was done with good intentions. I never saw him surprised or shocked by anything. He was never in a rush, never backed down from his goals, and never seemed confused or depressed. He wasn't quick to fake a smile, but he was never angry or suspicious either. He was always ready to do good, to forgive, and to tell the truth. He came across as a man who was naturally good, rather than someone who had to be fixed. No one ever felt belittled by Maximus, and no one ever dared to think they were better than him. He also had a great sense of humor. 16. From my father, I learned to be gentle and perfectly consistent in my decisions, once I had thought them through. He taught me not to be arrogant about worldly glory, and to be hardworking and persistent. He showed me to listen carefully to anyone who had an idea for the public good, and to give everyone exactly what they deserved. He knew exactly when to be strict and when to be forgiving. He taught me to avoid all impure desires and to treat everyone with basic human decency. He gave his friends the freedom to join him for dinner or travel with him only if they wanted to. If urgent business kept them away, he never held it against them. I learned from him to be careful and patient in meetings. He never settled for first impressions. I noticed how he kept his friends without being overly attached or easily changing his mind. He was happy in every situation and always cheerful. He planned far ahead and handled the smallest details quietly, without making a fuss. He put a stop to public cheering and flattery. He constantly watched over the needs of the empire, managed public money carefully, and ignored the people who criticized him for doing so. He wasn't superstitious about the gods, and he didn't try to win over the public by chasing popularity. Instead, he was steady, sensible, and focused on what was honorable, never chasing after the newest trends. He enjoyed the luxuries of life without pride or guilt. When they were available, he enjoyed them simply. When they weren't, he didn't miss them. No one could ever call him a fake, a clown, or a show-off. He was a mature, complete man who couldn't be manipulated. He knew how to govern himself just as well as he governed others. He deeply respected true philosophers, without insulting the fakes or letting them lead him astray. He was easy to talk to and his company was delightful, but never overwhelming. He took sensible care of his body, neither obsessing over his health and looks nor neglecting them. Because he took care of himself, he rarely needed medicine. His greatest quality was how he gladly stepped aside for anyone with a special talent, like great speakers or experts in law and history. He actively helped them so they could be recognized for their unique skills. He respected the old traditions without making a big show of it. He wasn't restless, he liked staying in the same places and doing the same work. Even after terrible headaches, he would get right back to his duties with fresh energy. He kept very few secrets, and only when they involved matters of the state. He was sensible and modest when throwing public events, building projects, or handing out bonuses. He always focused on what was right, not on the applause he might get. He didn't bathe at strange hours, had no obsession with fancy buildings, and didn't care about gourmet food, the color of his clothes, or the good looks of his servants. His clothes were mostly made of Lanuvian wool, or from his coastal villa at Laurium. We all remember how gently he treated the tax collector at Tusculum who begged for his forgiveness. That was how he always behaved. He was never cruel, unforgiving, or violent. He never did anything so intensely that you could say he was sweating over it. He thought everything through calmly, logically, and consistently, as if he had all the time in the world. You could honestly say of him what was said of Socrates: he knew how to enjoy things that most people can't handle having, and he knew how to go without things that most people can't stand losing. To be strong when you go without, and self-controlled when you enjoy things, these are the marks of a perfect, unbeatable soul, just like the one Maximus showed when he was sick. 17. I thank the gods that I had wonderful grandparents and parents, a good sister, excellent teachers, reliable servants, good relatives, and great friends. I am grateful that I never hurt any of them out of anger or carelessness, even though my temper could have easily pushed me to do so if the situation had arisen. Thanks to their goodness, I was never put in a position that exposed my weakness. I am also thankful that I didn't spend too much time being raised by my grandfather's mistress. I am glad I kept my innocence and waited longer than most before experiencing sexual pleasure. I owe it to the gods that I grew up under a ruler and father who stripped away all my vanity. He proved to me that a leader can live in a palace without bodyguards, fancy robes, torches, statues, or endless luxury. He showed me that a ruler can live almost like an ordinary citizen without losing the dignity and authority needed to govern. I thank the gods for giving me a brother whose character pushed me to be better, while his respect and love brought me so much joy. I am grateful that my children are mentally healthy and physically strong. I owe it to divine guidance that I didn't get too far into poetry, public speaking, or other hobbies. If I had been successful at them, they might have completely consumed my life. By the grace of the gods, I quickly promoted the people who raised me to the positions they wanted. I didn't make them wait and hope I would do it later when I was older. I thank the gods that I got to know Apollonius, Rusticus, and Maximus. I am grateful for the many clear opportunities one have had to think deeply about what it really means to live according to nature. As far as the gods are concerned, with all their help, inspiration, and guidance, there is nothing stopping me from living that life right now. If I have fallen short, it is my own fault for ignoring the gentle reminders and direct lessons of the gods. I am thankful that my body has held up so long under the extreme stress of my life. I am grateful that I never got involved with Benedicta or Theodotus, and that when I later fell into foolish passions, I recovered quickly. I give thanks that, even when I was furious with Rusticus, I never did anything I would later regret. I am grateful that my mother, though she died young, spent her final years living with me. I am thankful that whenever I wanted to help someone who was poor or struggling, I was never told we didn't have the money to do it. I am also glad that I never had to beg for that kind of help myself. I must be grateful that I have a wife who is so obedient, loving, and genuine. I am thankful I found such capable and honorable people to educate my children. I have received divine help in my dreams, particularly the remedies that stopped me from coughing up blood and cured my dizziness, which wonderfully happened to me at Cayeta. The gods also watched over me when I first turned to philosophy. I am so glad I didn't fall for some fake intellectual, waste my time reading endless books, obsess over logical puzzles, or spend my life staring at the stars. To have all these things turn out so well, I truly needed the help of fortune and the gods. Written in the country of the Quadi, by the Granua. End of Book 1. Book 2. 1. Say this to yourself in the morning: today I will cross paths with meddlers, ungrateful people, the arrogant, the deceitful, the envious, and the selfish. All these flaws affect them because they do not know what is good and what is evil. But I have seen the nature of the good, and found it beautiful. I have seen the nature of the bad, and found it ugly. I also understand the true nature of the wrongdo. I know he is my brother, not because we share the same blood or the same origin, but because he shares the same mind and a spark of the divine. Therefore, I cannot be hurt by any of them, since none of them can drag me into anything shameful. I cannot be angry with my brother, or cut myself off from him. We are made by nature to work together, like the feet, the hands, the eyelids, or the upper and lower rows of teeth. It is against nature for people to fight against each other, and what else is anger and disgust? 2. Everything I am consists of flesh, breath, and the ruling mind. Throw away your books. Stop distracting yourself, for you do not have the right to do so. Instead, act like someone at the point of death. Despise this flesh, this decaying bone and blood, this network of nerves, veins, and arteries. Consider, 2. What your breath really is. It is just air, always changing, breathed out and breathed in again every single moment. The third part is your ruling mind. Think about this: you are now old. Do not let this mind remain a slave any longer. Do not let it be dragged around like a puppet by every selfish urge. Stop complaining about what fate sends you now, and stop dreading what might happen to you in the future. 3. Whatever the gods decree is full of wise planning. Even the workings of chance are connected to nature and woven into the designs of providence. Providence is the source of all things. Beyond that, there is necessity and the greater good of the universe, of which you are a small part. For every part of nature, what is good is what comes from the nature of the whole and helps preserve it. The order of the universe is kept in balance by the changes of the elements, just as it is by the changes in the things they create. Let this be enough for you, and let these be your unchanging beliefs. Give up your thirst for books so you do not die complaining, but peacefully, with true and heartfelt gratitude to the gods. 4. Think about how long you have put things off, and how many times the gods have given you opportunities that you left unused. It is high time you understood the universe of which you are a part, and the ruler of that universe, from whom you came. A strict limit is set on your days. If you do not use this time to enlighten yourself, it will slip away, just as you yourself will, and it will never return. 5. Every hour, focus on doing what is in front of you with genuine dignity, kindness, freedom, and justice, just as a Roman and a man should. Free your mind from all other distractions. You can do this if you perform every action as if it were your last. Let go of all stubbornness, all passionate resistance to what reason tells you is right, and all hypocrisy, selfishness, and complaints about your fate. You see how few things you need to master to live a smooth, God-fearing life. If you hold to these principles, the gods will demand nothing more. 6. Go ahead, my soul, keep disrespecting yourself. The time you have left to respect yourself will not last long. Everyone's life is short, and yours is almost over. Yet you still do not honor yourself, and instead, you look for your happiness in the minds of other people. 7. Do outside troubles distract you? Make time to learn something good, and stop drifting aimlessly. But be careful to avoid the opposite mistake. Those who exhaust themselves in life with endless busywork are also trifling. They have no clear goal to which they can direct their desires and actions once and for all. 8. you will rarely find anyone who is unhappy because they did not pay attention to what was happening in someone else's mind. But those who do not carefully observe the movements of their own soul are guaranteed to be unhappy. 9. Always remember the nature of the universe, your own nature, and how the two are connected. Remember what part your qualities play in the qualities of the whole. No one can ever stop you from always speaking and acting in harmony with that nature of which you are a part. 10. When comparing different crimes, the philosopher Theophrastus makes a great point based on common sense. He says that crimes driven by pleasure are worse than those driven by pain or anger. A person overcome by anger is clearly pulled away from reason by a sudden spasm that catches them off guard. But someone who sins out of desire is conquered by pleasure, which makes them look weaker and less self-controlled in their wrongdoing. Theophrastus was right and truly philosophical to say that sinning for pleasure is worse than sinning because of pain. The angry person was wronged first and driven to anger by that pain, while the person seeking pleasure set out to do wrong on their own, led astray by their own cravings. 11. Do every deed, speak every word, and think every thought as if you could depart from this life at any moment. Leaving the world of men is nothing to be afraid of, if there are gods, because they would never bring evil upon you. And if there are no gods, or if they do not care about human affairs, why would I want to live in a world without gods or without providence? But there are gods, and they absolutely care about human affairs. They have put it entirely in our power to avoid falling into true evil. If anything else in life were genuinely bad, they would have made sure we had the power to avoid it. How can something make a person's life worse if it does not corrupt the person themselves? The guiding force of nature would not have ignored these things out of ignorance, or known about them but been powerless to stop them. Nature would not fail us so completely that good and evil would happen randomly to both good and bad people alike. Death and life, glory and shame, pain and pleasure, wealth and poverty, all these things happen equally to the good and the bad. Because they are neither honorable nor shameful, they are neither good nor evil. 12. It is the job of our rational mind to understand how quickly everything vanishes. Physical bodies are swallowed up in the material world, and the memory of them is washed away by the tide of time. This is the truth about everything we experience through our senses, especially the things that trap us with pleasure, terrify us with pain, or get endlessly hyped up by our vanity. How cheap, how pathetic, how dirty, how fragile, and how dead they really are. Who are these people whose opinions and voices grant fame? What does it actually mean to die? If you look at death on its own and strip away all the spooky stories we attach to it, your mind will see that it is simply a natural process. To be terrified of a natural process is childish. In fact, death is not just a process of nature but something useful to it. Your reason also shows you how a person connects to the divine, what part of them makes that connection, and what state that part is in when they finally reach it. 13. A poet once said that nothing is more miserable than a person who constantly wanders around, trying to dig into the secrets of the earth and guess what is going on in the minds of the people around them. They fail to realize that it is enough to focus on the divinity within themselves and serve it with genuine devotion. Serving this inner divinity means keeping it pure from passion, foolishness, and complaints about whatever gods or humans do. The work of the gods should be respected for its excellence. The actions of humans should be treated with care because we are all family. Sometimes we must even pity them for their inability to tell good from evil. This blindness is just as crippling as not being able to tell black from white. 14. Even if you were going to live 3,000 years, or 30,000 years, remember that you only ever lose the exact life you are living right now. You can only ever live the life you are losing in this moment. The longest life and the shortest life both end up in the exact same place. The present moment is exactly the same for everyone, and so what we lose is equal. It is clear that what you lose in death is just a tiny, fleeting instant of time. You cannot lose the past or the future, because how can anyone take away what you do not have? Remember these two things. First, everything moves in cycles and has been the same since the beginning of time. Therefore, it does not matter if you watch the same things happen for 100 years, 200 years, or for eternity. Second, the person who lives the longest and the person who dies the soonest lose exactly the same thing. They are only deprived of the present moment, because that is all they actually have. No one can be robbed of something they do not own. 15. Everything is just an opinion. The problems with this quote from Monimus the Cynic are obvious, but the usefulness of what he said is also obvious, as long as you take it for whatever truth it actually holds. 16. A person's soul disrespects itself most of all when it chooses to become an ugly growth, like an infection on the universe. Getting angry at anything that happens is a rebellion against the laws of nature, which hold together the order of all things. The soul also disrespects itself when it turns away from someone and deliberately tries to hurt them, just like angry people do. Third, the soul wrongs itself when it is overpowered by pleasure or pain. Fourth, it fails when it acts or speaks like a hypocrite, telling lies, or pretending to be something it is not. Fifth, the soul disrespects itself when it acts without direction or understanding, throwing its desires and actions around blindly. Even the smallest action should be aimed at a clear goal. The goal of all rational beings is to follow the order and law of the oldest and greatest community, the universe itself. 17. A human life lasts only an instant. Our physical substance is constantly changing, our senses are dull, and our bodies are meant to decay. Our soul is like a spinning vortex. We cannot predict our luck, and we cannot guarantee fame. Ultimately, the life of the body is just a flowing river, and the life of the soul is a hazy dream. Existence is a war and a journey through a strange land, and the only reward for fame is to be forgotten. What, then, can guide us? One thing, and one thing only: philosophy. Philosophy means keeping the divine spark within you safe and untouched. It means rising above pain and pleasure, living free from recklessness, lies, and hypocrisy. It means not depending on what other people do or fail to do. It means accepting whatever happens and whatever is given to you, because it comes from the exact same source you did. Above all, it means waiting for death with a calm mind, knowing it is nothing more than the dissolving of the elements that make up every living creature. If the elements themselves are not harmed when they constantly change into one another, why should anyone fear the change and dissolving of the whole? It is entirely natural, and nothing natural can ever be evil. Written in Carnuntum.